Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kiki and today's video is going to be my top 23 books of 2023. Now this was actually really hard for me to put together. I'm an extremely picky reader. I did manage to pick out a whole heap of books and these would have to be my 23 favorite reads of 2023. Let's just get started. The first book that I absolutely love of 2023 that I read was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This book shook me. It absolutely shook me to my core. I loved it so much. It wasn't a 5-star read, it was a 4.5. Laura, our female main character in this, did annoy me quite a lot towards the end of this book, and I just couldn't get behind her character when she was annoying me like that. It is a dark romance, so please check trigger warnings before you go into this book. I'm gonna leave this next book till last because it's actually my favorite book of 2023. The next book I have is Weak Side by S.J. Silvis. This is Sammy's first book that she wrote in her hockey romance era. She now has I Spit out and Sticks and Stones with Sarah Mazzari as well, and look, Weak Side will just always have a special place in my heart. I love this book so much. Hockey, college, sports romance, and I just feel like Sammy really knows how to write a good angsty slow burn, like the good slow burns, the slow burns that we really like. Okay, so I have a lot of sports romance in this pile. I went down a major sports romance rabbit hole this year. I'm actually a OG fantasy reader. I love the fantasy genre, and that's what I usually read. To be honest, all the fantasy books that I read this year fell super flat for me. They were all on that 3.5 star mark. So I don't really have any fantasy books in this pile. I do, however, have a lot of sports romance. So I'm just going to try and shake this pile up a little bit so it's not sports romance after sports romance. The Choice by Ashley Jade is another favorite of 2023. I actually read this at the beginning of the year. If you have read The Words by Ashley Jade, you need to go and read this one. This is Sky and Memphis's kind of prequel book. So this is set before The Words. And then we do have next year, I believe it's been announced May, The Consequence is coming out, which will be Sky and Memphis's story post Words. So if you were to do it in a chronological reading order, you would go The Choice, then you would go The Words, and then The Consequence, which is coming out next year. This was a 5-star read for me. Really loved it. It is an emotional read. It's not a very big read. It's quite small. It's only a 300-page book. So good. You do have to check trigger warnings before going into this one though. Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. This isn't a fan favorite book, this one. I know this, but this was a 5-star read for me. At first it wasn't a 5-star read, but it had me in an absolute tailspin and I just loved it. I had no idea where it was going. So this is a highly recommended book from me. It gives you like 17 Again movie vibes. So if you liked that movie, I do recommend reading Never Never. The next book I have is probably up there in my top 6 favorite reads of this year. Iced Out by Veronica Eden. Easton goddamn Blake. That's it. That's all you need to know. You want the perfect book boyfriend that isn't Noah Riley from Say You Swear? You need to go read and meet Easton Blake. The next book I have is slightly different to my usual taste. This is a rom-com. It was very funny, very just meet cute. A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. I really enjoyed this book. This was a 4.5 star read for me. I loved it so much. This was highly recommended to me by Danielle Reads Romance, one of my book besties over on Bookstagram. She is Megan Quinn's #1 fan. That girl has read so many of her books this year. So if you are looking for someone to help you out on where to start with Megan Quinn, go over to her page, send her a DM. She will absolutely love to talk to you about all things Megan Quinn. So the next 2 books I have, and I'm going to do them together because they are in a series. It is book 1, it is book 2. I don't know if I've spoken about it much here on my booktube page because I started this channel this year, But last year, my favorite read of 2022 was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I loved that book so much. I wasn't aware when I read it that there were two other books that were connected to Say You Swear. I read Say You Swear as a standalone, and yes, you can read it as a standalone, but one of the things that I hear the most in reviews is that the character dump at the beginning of the book is very confusing and it's very overwhelming and it's just too hard to keep up with. If this is a problem for you or was a problem for you in Say You Swear, let me introduce you to Fumbled Hearts and Defenseless Hearts. These are the characters' books from Say You Swear. So the beginning of Say You Swear, you meet Ari and Mason's cousins. These are their books. And I have to tell you now, both of these had me in absolute chokehold. Obviously, I went back and read these, and I have to recommend reading these before you read Say You Swear, because the whole emotional experience is just 10 times better. In Defenseless Hearts, you find out why Mason is so overprotective in Say You Swear. You find out Peyton's car accident and everything like that in these books. You also get introduced to your Say You Swear characters in these ones. So while Say You Swear is promoted as a standalone, it is connected to these two books. Both of these were 5-star reads. And just to change things up a little bit, my next book here is Then She Was Gone. I loved this book a lot. Very dark, but not dark romance dark. It's not the kind of dark that, you know, has all the red flags and we all sit there and go, ooh, are we questioning our sanity here? Because why do we like this? It's not that kind of dark romance. This is dark in the sense of you're watching a true crime show. It shook me. The letter at the end of this book had me absolutely sobbing. It is a thriller, so if that is your cup of tea, I highly recommend this one. I loved it a lot. The next book I have, and I just did a book review on it. It is one of my favorite reads of this year. I'm still thinking about Gigi and Ryder. The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. You can go check out my review if you want. It's honestly just one big hype review. I loved this a lot. All the stars, infinity stars. One of my favorites of this year. The next book I have is A Wish for Us by Tilly Cole. This was not a 5-star read for me. There was a little part in here towards the end where it kind of started dragging a little bit and I got a little bit bored in it, but it picked up really quick and I'm glad I stuck through with it because this book absolutely wrecked me. It's not as emotional as 1,000 Boy Kisses, but I sobbed so much at the end of this book. I love these characters a lot. I wish I could just jump into this story and give them a hug. Everything in this book was just incredibly well written. The storyline, the emotions that these characters go through. This book, I will just forever recommend. I loved this a lot. Even though there was a little part in there that kind of lulled for me, easily forgotten because this was everything, this book. Whilst we're on the emotional train there, my other book that had me feeling all the feels that I read this year was Darling Venom. This book was very, very heavy. I highly recommend checking trigger warnings for this one. Not a 5-star read for me. It is too long for what it is. There were a couple of parts in here where I was just like, okay, let's keep this story moving. But the story itself and the subjects this book touches on were very, very well done. Very heavy on the heart. I did really, really like this book. The next book that I loved this year, the pile of books just fell over and scared me. The Housemaid. Look, this book was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I only started reading thriller this year, but this is my favorite one that I have read. I didn't pick up on the plot twist in this until the page before the plot twist hit. That's very unlike me. Usually I pick up on this stuff like well before it hits, but it was one page and it clicked for me and I was like, oh my god, no way. Turn the page, there it was. Hands down, one of the best thrillers I've read. I really, really loved this. Have not read book 2 though. It's on my TBR. With thriller, I've really got to be in the mood for them. The next book is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I have a review here on my channel as well for this book. I loved this a lot. It is my favorite Emily Henry book I have read and I highly, highly recommend this one. I don't actually like second chance romances, but this one really, really changed my mind on that trope, and I just loved it a lot. This year, I also started the Hockey Gods series by S. Masery, and Secret Obsession lands in this list. This is Miles's book, and I loved it so much. He is so incredibly unhinged. It's insane. I just really, really loved this book. It is a dark hockey college sports romance. So if college sports romance is your thing, if you're in your hockey era but you love a dark romance, this series is for you. P.S. I'm Still Yours by Elia Greenwood. This is my favorite read of 2023. This is a rock star second chance romance, and it has everything I love in a book. Absolutely everything. I think I stayed up till 2 a.m. in the morning to finish this book. Add it to your TBR, read it ASAP. It's just everything you want in a book. Recently, I also went down a Hannah Cohen rabbit hole. I have read all of her books within a month. Her Greatest Adventure, which is book 2 in her Next Generation series, landed on this list, 5 stars. Cooper White is everything, and the little surprise she gave us for Cooper White in that book, like I DM'd Hannah on Bookstagram and was like, Hannah, what? Wow, okay, cool. Didn't see that coming, but I loved it so much. That book got 5 stars for me, so definitely add Hannah Cohen to your TBR list. All her books are amazing. I also read this year Full Tilt and All In by Emma Scott. I have not heard much about these 2 books anywhere on my social media accounts. I believe they were released years ago, so I'm not sure if it's just because it's been so long since they've been released. These books were incredible. Very emotional, very heavy on the heart, but I love an emotional read. I love a book that can like have me feeling all the feels and have me feeling like I'm gonna cry my little eyes out. So I highly, highly recommend these 2 books here by Emma Scott. The last book I have for my sports romances on this list is Sin Bin by Anastasia White. I loved this book so much. It is one of my favorite hockey romances of this year. There is just one trope in here that I did not like, and that is why I got 4.5 stars and not 5 stars. But I have spoken to Anastasia through DMs about this back when I read it. Anastasia and I are now pretty good friends, and I alpha read for her now, and I just absolutely love her writing. This was her first book that I read of hers. It was recommended to me by a few book friends who did some ARC reads for this, and I jumped on board with it. I fell in love with her writing style. Chapter 1 in this had me just shook. Like, no author has ever had me like with my jaw hanging open from chapter 1. Like, I was like, did that just happen? Like, is this happening right now in chapter 1? So I highly recommend adding Sin Bin to your TBR if you love a hockey sports college romance. Next 2 books I have are from the same series, Indigo Ridge and Crimson River by Devney Perry. Indigo Ridge is actually one of my favorite books of 2023. It lands in my top 3. I loved this so much. It really shocked me. I actually wasn't going to read this series ever. It never jumped out at me. It never called to me. I never really kind of like felt the need to pick them up. I then decided to join a buddy read on Bookstagram for Indigo Ridge, and now Devney Perry is one of my favorite authors. Like, I actually am obsessed with her writing, and Indigo Ridge and Crimson River are 2 of my favorite books from this series. Also love Juniper Hill. Look, the whole series is amazing, so just add the whole series to your TBR. The last book I have for 2023 is a dark romance. It is a very entertaining dark romance, although you should still check your trigger warnings. Den of Vipers. Now, here's the thing with this book. It is terribly written, okay? It got 4 stars. In any other day or world, I probably would have given it 3 stars, but it is the most entertaining book I have ever read. I read this book. It is a 637 page book, and I read it in a day. Don't ask me what I did with my life that day, but I read this in a day. It is so, so entertaining. Don't go into this book thinking that it is the most amazingly written book you've ever read. Characters are entertaining, the storyline is entertaining. Look, I thought about Diesel for months after I read this book. It is a RH/Why Choose book, so check trigger warnings. It's dark romance, it's mafia romance. It was just a great read. So that is my 23 books of 2023 that I absolutely loved. Not all of them are 5-star reads. Not all of them were amazingly written reads. There were a few extra books in there for the series and stuff like that. They are books that I would have thought about for days afterwards, that I highly recommend throughout the whole year. I really, really, really enjoyed all 23 of those books and do recommend them no matter what my star rating is on them. If you have read any of these books and also loved them, drop a comment below and let me know. If you plan on adding any of these to your TBR, let me know as well, because I would love to know your thoughts on them once you have read them. Please don't forget to hit like, please don't forget to subscribe, and if you'd like to, head over to my Bookstagram page and give me a follow over there, because I'm on there every day recommending books, talking to people about books, and just sharing life things and all the reading updates. I hope you enjoyed this video, friends, and I will see you all in the next one.